Welcome to the Legal Hodgepodge, where we talk a whole lot about immigration and bankruptcy and a little bit about everything else. I am your host, attorney Evelyn J. Pabon Figueroa. Thank you for joining us. Before we move on, I want to remind you that the information in this podcast is not legal advice and is only provided for informational purposes only. Today, we will be talking about efforts by Texas and Florida to control immigration, as well as changes to the employment verification process.
The Legal Hodgepodge.
On July 1st, Florida's new immigration law came into effect. This law increases penalties for those employers that hire unauthorized workers or for those employers that do not follow the rules when it comes to verifying that a new hire is authorized to work. In addition, this new law makes it that someone that has 25 or more employees will have to use the E-Verify system when they are verifying that someone is authorized to work. A little bit more controversially, the law also made it a felony for someone that brings a person into the state of Florida if that person entered the country without authorization. It also makes it where hospitals have to ask individuals about their immigration status when they are receiving services, as long as the hospital receives Medicaid funds. And it makes certain driver's license from certain states invalid in Florida. Before this law was passed, and after it was passed, there was a lot of controversy, and there were a lot of protests regarding the law. A few weeks after the law came into effect, a lawsuit was filed challenging that part of the law that makes it a felony to bring someone into the state if that person entered the country without authorization. It is expected that the plaintiffs will also file a request for an injunction that will stop the government from enforcing this section while the lawsuit is pending. However, this injunction has not been issued. Therefore, as of today, it is the law that it is a felony in Florida to bring someone into the state that has entered the country without authorization. We will continue to monitor this case and bring you any updates as they come along.
The Legal Hodgepodge.
In March of 2021, the state of Texas started Operation Lone Star. This operation was meant to control immigration into the U.S. through the land border in Texas. Part of the things that the state has done since it started Operation Lone Star include moving undocumented immigrants from Texas into states such as New York or California, which Texas deems as sanctuary states. It also has arrested adults on trespassing charges. And more recently, it placed floating barriers in the Rio Grande. These barriers are meant to prevent people from swimming from the Mexico border of the Rio Grande to the Texas-U.S. border of the Rio Grande. Now, the federal government filed a lawsuit against Texas. According to the federal government, Texas cannot place those barriers on the Rio Grande, and it needs federal government permission to do this. We expect the state of Texas to actively defend against this lawsuit, and we will keep you updated on all events that take place regarding this lawsuit. Now, we heard earlier about Florida passing immigration law. Now we hear about Texas passing immigration law. It doesn't matter whether you agree with Texas and Florida, or you believe these states are crazy and anti-immigrants. I think we can all agree that Congress needs to step in. Immigration is not a matter for states to decide. It is a matter for the federal government to decide. And as long as the federal government does not fix our broken immigration system, we will have states like Florida and Texas taking immigration into their own hands.
The Legal Hodgepodge.
Under federal law, employers are required to make sure that the people they hire are authorized to work in the country. They do this by completing Form I-9 employment verification. This form recently went through some changes. There's a new edition that came out on August 1st, which is available for use, And starting November 1st of this year, it will be mandatory for employers to use this new form as the form for the employment verification. The form made some changes. It made it shorter. It clarified some information regarding the instructions that employers have to follow, and it provided some guidance regarding the documents and all that. Now, one very important change in all of this process has to do with remote verification of documents. When an employer hires someone, this person, this new hire, has to provide the employer with certain documents that show that the person is authorized to work in the country. Normally, the employer has to physically examine these documents, which means that they have to be in the same place as the documents. However, there is this new change makes it so that employers that also use the E-Verify online system are able to remotely verify those documents. So if the employer is using E-Verify, they can remotely check the documents of an employee as opposed to having to be physically in the same location. This is very useful for employers that have employees that work remotely. After COVID, we've seen that a lot of businesses have employees that work from home or work from different locations. This will be useful because now the employer doesn't have to see the documents physically. This is all for today. Thank you for joining me.
You can reach attorney Evelyn Pabon Figueroa at 407-874-5490, or you can email her at epabonfigueroa@pcc.law. You can also visit our website at privatecorporatecounsel.com. Stay tuned for the next episode of The Legal Hodgepodge.